So one of the comments on one of my videos where I said, stop watching me, go and do something else. The question is, like, do I really mean that? Well, of course, if you are 60 years old, 70 years old, and your energy isn't such which can take you around the world, then you either going to be given to reading books, watching YouTube movies, playing crib, or something of this nature. And so, well, what are your choices? Your choices are limited, aren't they? If you are younger than 35, I would say that you're too young to be spending your life in front of YouTube videos. You're too young for my videos, because my videos are only going to ever mean anything to you when you have the experience to equate them to. You have to have some life experience which will enable you to understand some sort of a reality, what I'm saying. Now, many of my videos speaking about psychology, the essence of what it is to be, philosophy, and psychedelic experiences, meditative experiences, out-of-body experiences, paranormal experiences. Because I've had all those experiences, because I've been around the world, travelled extensively for many, many years, met 1 million people, and engaged in hundreds of thousands of things, then I've learned a thing or two about what it is to be a human being. And so, at my time of life, let's say I was about 46, 47, when I froze in front of the computer. And predominantly I stopped my global travel, and I wanted to see what the world knew about some of the experiences that I'd had and what I was experiencing, and could I get abreast of knowing what I am. And so, reading psychology and listening to many people speaking about these things over the years, I've put the gaps in the jigsaw together. And so now there aren't too many gaps in the jigsaw puzzle. But if you are only gathering bites of information and you are tentatively storing some of it up, because you'll only ever store up a very minuscule part of it, because it won't mean anything to you. So therefore, these memories won't have any substance to latch onto. It's kind of like, let's say, a virus. A virus needs some living cell to attach itself to. And so if you don't have any tangible life experience stored away in your memory, then there's nothing for this information to relate to attach to. So reading about supernatural experiences or religion and human psychology and philosophy, if you are still very young, then you just simply do not have anything of any substance to build upon. You've got to have life experience, people. And this is why people like Solzhenitsyn, who had 10 years in the Gulag, like Dostoevsky, 4 years in the Gulag, like Viktor Henkel, who was several years in the Nazi concentration camp. By the time you've had that level of life experience, you know a thing or two about what it is to be a human being. And that's why those people then became to be great. Dostoevsky, before he had his 4 years in the Gulag, was a failed writer. he was writing lots of stuff which just flunked. And so it wasn't until he really was speaking from his heart and had the greatest level of insight into human psychology that he could write with such a depth which touched many people. And so I know there's quite a lot of you young guys, and you're desperately seeking for some sort of guidance. This is the whole premise of where Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life is based, because he, being a psychoanalyst, practicing for 25 years, met a lot of people that didn't have any rudder, and for whatever reason they never had any rudder, no stability, no direction. And so he tried to instill in them some very, very rudimentary ways to start off attaining a little bit of structure in their lives. And he would start off on, and he uses the analogy, and I don't know how many times he actually stated this to people, but it was like, clear up your fucking room. Tidy your room, for fuck's sake. Let's start somewhere. Lots of people, they have no order, they have no discipline, they have no relationship with tidiness. Tidiness is close to godliness, and so if you living in a shithole, then you're living in hell, because your home is a direct reflection of your mind. And so by the time you've got your home in order, then you have set the cornerstone of your life, because your life is going to depend on the squareness of that cornerstone. My cornerstone was set very early in life, because I grew up in a very disciplinary household, because we had many kids. There was 12 of us, and so we needed to have a lot of structure, and everybody needed to cater for themselves, and carry out chores and all different sorts of things like that. And so we were very, very regimented, to the point of the household being dictatorial, exceedingly disciplinary, and if we didn't complete any of our tasks that were issued with us, then we'd be punished, and we'd be punished quite severely. And so from the get-go, I had that level of stability in my life. But I lost stability from the age of 4, when my mother took her own life, and then my father put myself, my brother and my 2 younger sisters into care, and we was in care for the next 5 years. And during that period I lost stability, I lost direction, but I was still young enough when my father got us out of these care homes into a stable environment, and deeply and purposely instilled in us the discipline that we had potentially lost for those 5 years. And so for me, it was like growing up in a finishing home. It was like being in the army for all those years. I left home when I was 17. I left to go and live on my own in Vancouver, Canada. In actual fact, it was Victoria, Vancouver Island. And so I was already a self-made man at 17. But, in all seriousness, there are much more better things to do than watching YouTube, people. And I can't help thinking that there's going to be many misspent youths with people staring into a screen when they should have been having life experience. And so, albeit my information is very valuable for the right ears, for the right level of experience, but most of what I say isn't going to be fathomed at any serious level with people who simply haven't had the experience. And so I would think, unless you've had a very, very difficult life, then you're still pretty well much adolescents at the age of 35 these days. But some of you, I know, you had terrible childhoods and despicable parents and all these things, and so you learned a great deal from that. And I don't know what other life circumstances you've been in, but you'll gauge that, you'll know that. And what I'm posing to you is that you confront yourself with this question: am I wasting my life in front of the screen? How many hours a day am I spending in front of the screen? What really am I benefiting from doing that? You can learn all about the wisdom of Alan Watts and, Jordan Peterson and, any of the gurus out there that, have some life experience to call upon. You see, most of them, they're not calling on life experience, so you couldn't trust anything that they said. But people like, Peterson is calling on life experience as far as what he speaks of. And when we listen to people like Joe Rogan, he'll speak about life experience according to his life. And so he'll convey things, what he's able to convey within the parameters of his experience, And so we really just have to make an assessment of our life at this moment in time. And even I'm now doing it, aren't I? I'm saying to you, look, guys, I don't know whether this is a good thing for me anymore. I enjoyed going down all these rabbit holes, but I think the enjoyment went out of it probably about 5 years ago. But I still kept on and on and on, scraping the bottom of the barrel, looking for anything that I'd missed, any crumb of information, a teeny little bit of the jigsaw puzzle which I could put in place to build my world, my pictorial world. And I can say to myself, aha, that jigsaw puzzle depicts my life, because my life has been this experience, and all these pieces that I've put in there are experience coupled with knowledge. So now I have a full and rich picture of what my life has been. But now I'm finding that there's nothing new to me anymore. I'm just going round and round and round in a circle. I'm not getting anywhere. And I think now that it is time for me to go back out into the world and to put my wisdom and experience and knowledge to that's interesting, isn't it? Put it to work. To place it in a realm which would be more beneficial. Could I touch people in more meaningful ways? Would contact with a human being soften what I have been hardened to? Would real life experience with the human beings, which I've had little of, to be fair, in the last 14 years, would that give me a different perspective? Could I see more than I had learnt? Would I be able to consider all human beings as very valuable and potential to learn from and worthy, regardless of how they are and what they do and the state of their consciousness and all this sort of thing? That for me would be a very, very major task. And if being truly enlightened, we are supposed to be completely 100% compassionate to our fellow man and love all, well, at this moment in time, I find that a bit of a stretch, and I would consider that is a task beyond me, to be fair. And to be even fairer, I would think that it's really beyond all human beings, even beyond Jesus. Even Jesus turned over the tables and dismissed certain facets of society because they weren't worthy of what he had to say. And so I don't think we can love unconditionally. The only time I've ever been aware of unconditional love is the day Jesus showed me what it was like. Isn't that the thing? And I looked at that, felt that, and I knew to myself that it wouldn't be possible for me to ever replicate that. That was just too mind-blowing. And I couldn't create it within myself, and I couldn't project it, impart it, bestow it on anybody else. I just couldn't have that level of sincerity, that level of deep, deep love and compassion and understanding. I'm too old in the fucking tooth, too long in the tooth. I just seriously doubt that. But you could say, well, you've been defeated before you even try. Well, I think I'm going to try to be a little more open-minded. Put it that way. I'm going to be trying to be a little bit more open-minded. Because what I do know about me as a dichotomous person, every human being that I encounter, I'm very pleasant to. And I've always got an ear to lend and a hand to help. And so I look at that and I go, well, look, there's a great contradiction with what you are saying online, Aaron, because you're not depicting the real you. What is it that you're trying to present to the world? And so that's something that I've got to address, because I don't know if there's ever been an occasion when I would speak to anybody and tell them that they are X, Y, and Z. I always inquire, and I always pose questions, and I always drop little snippets of information and leave them with that. I don't walk away insulting them or leaving them deflated, any shape or form like that. I've never done that. And so when I'm doing it online, then I can only assume that it's a level of expression, it's a level of resentment for the lack of response to the things I've been saying. It's like, you know, people writing a book, like Nietzsche wrote his first book. Many philosophers and many great writers, Dostoevsky, their books absolutely bomb. The only time they ever get traction is when the general consensus have an acceptance to it, when they've been programmed that that's a good book, or you should read this author. Then they'll all go, oh, I'll read that author. They all follow like fucking sheep. And to be quite fair, people, I fucking despise the sheep. I think they are born onto this planet to be consumed. Tasty little morsels they are, and I don't think the sheep or human being is any different. I think they all should be bound in chains to break rocks for the rest of their lives until they have some sort of spark of consciousness. And if the spark of consciousness never manifests, then let that be their fate. And so what has the world done? That's what the world's done. The world has enslaved all the idiots into 9-to-5s, into pointless and meaningless tasks, without any purpose, without any joy, without any job satisfaction. Just producing. But of course the world needs all these things produced, so somebody's got to do it. And because robots don't do it all at this moment in time, then human robots have been conditioned into doing it. But you know, there's going to come a time when these human conditioned robots are no longer needed. What is the world going to do with them? That's one of the biggest questions. That's one of the biggest scenarios which is looming fast upon the world. What is the world going to do with all these creatures which have been dumbed down and automated? They're not going to be able to think for themselves. They're going to wander around like lost sheep until somebody takes it upon them to call them in some shape or form. And so many questions. We're heading for, you know, very, very curious times. But getting back to the original question before I wrap this video up, should people continue to watch my videos? If you haven't got anything better to do, then watch my fucking videos. But if you've got a life to live, if you have a sense of adventure, if there's loads of things that you want to do, for fuck's sake, go and do them. If you play an instrument, then play that instrument. Join a band and do some concerts. And if you're a sports person, get heavily involved in that. If you're a poet, whatever you are, put your time and effort into that. Channel your energy into something that you enjoy. But if you don't enjoy this life, if you're a lost soul and you're just looking for answers, then you'll find yourself on my channel. And so if that's the best you can do, and if you think that's serving you in the best possible way, and there's nothing else that you'd rather be doing or capable of doing, then continue. But you know, there is more to life than staring into a screen and listening to second, third, fourth, 1,000 times old information. You know, you should be concentrating on your own experience, because that's the only thing that's ever going to remotely resemble any truth to you. So if you get to a point in life where you're 50 years old and you haven't travelled and you've only ever had 2-3 girlfriends, and, well, fuck me, maybe watching YouTube is the next best thing. Yeah?